being here today. We wanted to kick off our press conference today talking about a bill that's been introduced in the Senate, Senate Bill 1052, that deals with what is a topic on everybody's mind, and it deals primarily with budgeting, particularly with the starting numbers. If you'll look at the information that we've provided to you, basically the way the bill would work is this fiscal year's availability number would be last calendar year's collections. And the idea behind this is that you want your spending to follow your revenue, not have your revenue out or your spending out ahead of your revenue. And that's been one of the primary problems that we've had over the past 10 years particularly, but even before that we've had situations where we're here, as we are this year, in April, waiting to hear what the revenue numbers are from the April collections to determine what our availability is going to be for the budget that would be for the fiscal year that begins on the 1st of July. This bill basically would say that we just take the collections from the last year. We would have those numbers in January. We could start with the real availability number that we would be working with by the middle of January. We probably, in all reality, could finish a legislative session well before the beginning of the fiscal year, because we would not be waiting for 3 months for numbers to determine how much we're going to spend. If at the end of the fiscal year there's an excess collections, which we've got a chart that shows excess collections over the past 10 years, half of that would go to the rainy day fund and the repair and renovations fund, split 50-50 amongst those funds, and the other half would go to capital projects, debt service, or this is a unique thought around here, maybe a refund to the taxpayers. If you'll take a look at several charts, we've got one chart that tracks the amount of revenue that would be projected for a fiscal year based on the calendar year and the amount of actual collections for that fiscal year. You can see that in general the revenue numbers for the fiscal year are more than the availability number you would be starting with. So we do run into a flattening out because of the economy, and we've shown that in 2008, 2009, and for 2009, 2010. However, even in those situations, you'd have enough of a carry forward from the rainy day fund that you're in good shape. What we'd be starting with this year as an availability number is $19.3 billion, which is kind of interesting. The information we have from staff is that the governor's office is saying that the actual spending for 2008-2009 in the general fund is going to be $19.5 billion. So we'd be starting out at a number that is the actual spending from last year. So the idea of freezing spending would be something that would be a reality. Again, this is not a new or a unique idea. This idea has been around for a while, but the bill has been introduced, and I thought it was a good time for us to be talking about this because of the recently passed Senate budget, which, as we've indicated, does not cut spending. The Senate budget actually spends almost $21 billion. The spending this fiscal year is going to be $19.5 billion, so it contains a 7% plus increase in spending, not a spending cut. And that's both both the Senate budget and the governor's budget. The Senate did something with theirs that made their spending look a lot less in taking $900 million in money that's being spent for Medicaid and putting it totally off the budget so that their number looked to be closer to $20 billion as opposed to $21 billion. But that's the bill, and I'd be more than happy to try to answer any questions you've got about that or answer questions on other subjects. I'll turn it over to Skip before we get to that point, though.
Thanks, Senator Berger. Let me give you just one case in point that would illustrate the virtues of this system. 2 years ago, at the beginning of this biennium, the House passed the budget, the Senate passed the budget, each about 6% roughly. Then, the conference committee was reported. In the House, it was 66 Democrats, 7 Republicans who were not invited to the meetings much. And at the very end, they found an additional $400 million, which was all spent in the conference report to give us, I think, a 9.7% increase in spending. That happened at the end. And of course, that, I believe, was the genesis of our budget problem last year extending into this year. If we had had Senator Berger's procedure in place, we would have had a long debate about what to spend, but that temporary increase that we had in revenue availability would have now been available now when we really need it. Let me give you one other thought. For the last too many years, if revenue comes in less than the budget, the effect is to give the governor a line item veto, because she's constitutionally required to keep spending under within the amount of money available. So if you just budget to please your base, your people that want to see what you budgeted, then you're giving the governor total control over every item in the budget except perhaps debt service.
One other thing, that this proposal would create what is in essence a lag in spending, where instead of projecting a year ahead what you're going to spend, you actually delay that spending by a year. It doesn't necessarily cut out increases in spending, because as you can see, the revenue figures do increase year over year, in some instances by significant numbers. But it does create a lag, and that creates a cushion for us so that we don't end up with the sorts of falls that we've seen this year, what we saw in the 2001 session. And so it would create more predictability in terms of the budget and not create some of the problems that we've had. And as Skip indicated, the situation where what you do is basically give the governor complete authority over where the spending cuts are going to come and what spending is going to take place. The other thing that's built into these numbers are some tax increases that occurred over the past 10 years, and you'd have to pull those numbers out. It would make the surpluses somewhat smaller, but it would not, in our view, affect the overall stability or the overall message that we've got here, and that is that revenues increase year over year. And if you base your spending on last year's collections, you will not end up with the budget problems that we've got. We'll be glad to take your questions.
Have you heard anything yet about the Senate finance package? Are we going to see that this week? Do you know? Have you heard anything yet?
There's a Senate Finance Committee meeting tomorrow that I believe is going to be the first step in trying to build a case for whatever that package turns out to be. The specifics are still, as I understand it, in a state of flux. I suspect that you'll see some of the things that we saw in the governor's package, the increases in tobacco taxes, increase in alcohol taxes, but there probably will be some additional tax adjustments, we'll just use their word.
Do Republicans have sort of a general agreed upon sense of whether, I guess this emerging issues think tank is going to, with Van Root and some others, are going to propose lowering tax rates and broadening them to include services. Do Republicans have any opinion on that?
I think Republicans are in different places on that. I don't know that there's unanimity amongst Republicans on one doing something of that nature. I do think there is support amongst Republicans for that. I know within the caucus in the Senate, we've had some discussions about that, and we've got folks in different places. I think you will see general support amongst Republicans for reducing our high income tax rates, and that over time it may make sense to broaden